Let us talk about the cognitive approaches to grammar instruction. Cognitive science is a relatively new field emerging in the mid 1950s with the work of cognitive psychologists, linguists such as Chomsky, and the establishment of artificial intelligence as a research area. It is cross disciplinary, with contributions from psychology, philosophy, psycholinguistics, neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and cognitive anthropology, but the shared focus of research is the working of the mind. So we will be focusing on the working of the mind. How does the mind process the the grammar lessons? Within psycholinguistics and applied linguistics are a number of cognitive approaches. So that is a cognitive approach. In a review article on cognitive approaches to second language acquisition, one major researcher, Ellis, notes that the study of cognition in language learning deals with mental representations and information processing. So when we say cognitive approaches, it has something to do with the mental representations and information processing. How does the mind process the information which comes into it, okay, and seeks to develop functional and neurobiological descriptions of the learning processes which through exposure to representative experience, that is what we have to remember as language teachers when we teach grammar, that there is a need for exposure to representative experience. There must be experience result in change. There will be change, development, and the emergence of knowledge. That's the only time that there will be emergence of knowledge when we provide experience to our learners. In this definition, both first and second language learning are seen to use the same general information processing mechanisms that are responsible for all forms of knowledge and skills development. Language learning is thus placed within the context of cognitive development in general. This approach differs from views which hold that language development takes place within a special module in the brain. So that's what we have to remember, that it's not that there is a special module in the brain which processes language development, which helps in language development. Let's continue. So, why is there a need for a cognitive approach? The usefulness of a cognitive approach to grammar instruction in ESL or EFL becomes clear when we consider the problems with purely communicative approaches. When we make use of more on communicative approaches, then the need for a cognitive approach comes in. These tend to be based on theories which distinguish between language acquisition, an unconscious process similar to the way children learn their first language, and language learning or formal instruction. So there is an interaction between the unconscious process of language acquisition and language learning, which is formal instruction on rules, forms, and vocabulary. So therefore, we should take note that it's just that the natural process. There is also a need for formal instruction. There should be interaction between the two. These theories claim that the best way to learn a language, so um, the best way to learn a language, either inside or outside a classroom, is not by treating it as an object for study. We should not treat it as an object of study, as a mere subject, but by experiencing it meaningfully. That's what we have to remember as language teachers, that our students should be able to experience the language meaningfully as a tool for communication. We should be able to make them realize that what we are teaching them is something which they can use for communication, perhaps with target grammar structures physically highlighted or embedded within communicative activities. There are communicative activities as recommended by current focus on form approaches to grammar instruction. Okay. This view may be acceptable for many ESL classrooms, although considerable research shows that when students receive only communicative lessons with no instruction on grammar points, their level of accuracy suffers. We have to take note of that. When we only provide communicative lessons like group activities, like role plays, etc., things like that, with no instruction on grammar, but we don't point out grammar rules. We don't teach them grammar. We don't tell them the rules. Their level of accuracy still suffers. However, such an approach is not useful by itself in EFL context. So it is a different thing when we talk about the EFL contexts, because adequate access to communicative use of English is usually not available when we talk about EFL, because and students need to develop accurate English grammar, vocabulary, and translation skills. That's what we need when we talk about English as a foreign language. We should teach them grammar rules. It's more on rules, more on acquiring vocabulary and translation skills, because they would be taking examinations when they go into high school, so that they would be able to pass high school and university entrance examinations. So that's the difference between EFL and ESL in that particular context. Thus, in the EFL setting, formal grammar instruction is usually the norm. When we talk about EFL setting, there's a more formal grammar instruction, even though main teachers would like students to develop communicative skills as well. Although EFL teachers also want students to be able to develop their communicative skills as well. It is therefore not surprising that many EFL teachers look for a compromise between the two extremes of a structure-based curriculum, with its teacher-led classrooms and formal instruction on a series of isolated language forms versus a purely communicative classroom. So there's this conflict between the communicative classroom and a structure-based curriculum, and a very formal classroom with its emphasis on group work and no focus on linguistic forms whatsoever. But many teachers now prefer an eclectic approach. That's what we have to remember, that as teachers, we should be eclectic in terms of our approach. Many teachers now make use of eclectic. When we say eclectic, they sometimes make use of a structured based curriculum. They sometimes are very formal in terms of their instruction, but at times they create more communicative classrooms. It's up to the teachers, it's up to the needs of the students. Administering some type of grammar instruction within a communicative framework, and this is reflected in the mixture of activities in the newer multidimensional textbooks for ESL and EFL students. There is considerable research support for this position, and it is common to distinguish between two types of classroom activities. The meaning focus, there are two types of classroom activities when we talk about the grammar classes. The meaning focus, referring to purely communicative practices where the goal is to process meaning focus. It's a meaning focused classroom wherein students are being taught how they would be able to acquire the meaning, or to be able to make use of the meaning of the structures they are learning. And form focused, referring to practices that draw attention to the way language forms are used in this course. This, on the other hand, has something to do with the correctness of how students make use of language. This distinction is very important in current pedagogy, and both meaning-focused and form-focused activities are thought to be necessary for successful development of both fluency and accuracy. Take note, there is a need for us to come up with classrooms which are at times form-focused and at times meaning-focused, so that we would be able to develop it among our students the fluency and accuracy. The value of meaning focused communicative activities that provide learners with comprehensible input and opportunities to improve and correct their own output through interaction with others has been demonstrated repeatedly. However, form-focused activities emphasizing the features of particular grammar points are also necessary in order for learners to develop accuracy. So there is also a need for us to create form-focused activities, to provide our learners with form-focused activities so that we will be able to develop accuracy among our learners. Such form-focused approaches have been found to be effective in developing the learner's ability to use grammar forms communicatively. If instruction is then followed by opportunities to encounter the instructed grammar point frequently in communicative usage. But then, we should follow such activities with other activities which are communicative in form. It is therefore not surprising that many ESL or EFL teachers look for a compromise between the two extremes of a structure-based curriculum with its teacher-led classrooms and formal instruction on a series of isolated language forms. At the same time, many teachers now prefer, okay, I already mentioned this a while ago, and that's it for the cognitive approaches, for the introduction for cognitive approaches in language teaching. That's it. Thank you.